Call this meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please be seated and remember to silence your cell phones if you have them with you. First item on the agenda, as always, is citizen concerns. If there is anyone who would like to approach the board with a concern on an issue not already represented on the agenda.
Good afternoon. Rick Snyder, Conservation Director, for only a little while longer. I just wanted to report that at their meeting last Thursday, the Conservation Board officially named their next Conservation Director. That'll be Daniel Heisel. He's currently the Conservation Director for Clay County at Spencer. He's got 27 years experience as a Conservation Director, 15 at Clay County and 12 at Pocahontas County. He's a native of Lamar's, so he's close by and excited about the position, looking forward to being down here. So wanted to let you know that, make that official. And he was down at our board meeting last Thursday. He's coming back this Thursday to go with me when I do conservation easements. That's something new for him. And since I do that in the summer, it's not something we could go over when we overlap for a little bit of time there. He will start November 1 and overlap about 6 weeks with me. So we'll be touching on a lot of things and coming to a lot of meetings here, going over the rest of the things at that time. So if you ever have any questions about it or anything, let me know. I'm sure he'll be down here sometime before he starts. You'll get to meet him too.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Just if we could have him at the next department head meeting, if his time allows for that, or if there's a subsequent one, that would be great.
I was planning to get him here to one of those before November. We'll see how it works. He has to take vacation to come on down here on those days yet, but well, I'll extend.
There's at least 2 or 3 options.
Yep, I'll let him know those dates too, so he can work around that.
And I just wanted to say one other thing, if I may. I really, really appreciate the way that you've handled the transition and working with the board and training up the next person in that overlap. You've been absolutely outstanding. I haven't had the pleasure of working on the conservation board as liaison, but there are a few department heads or elected officials who are as quality of a leader as you are. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And like I mentioned in my email to you, we do have those costs for the overlap covered in last year's budget carryover. So things are looking good on all that respect. So
thanks,
it'll just be part of a budget amendment that you'll have to take care of next year. All right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other citizen concerns? And we are on to item 3, approval of the agenda for today, August 8th.
I'll move the approval.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We are at 4:34 by my watch. I'd like to move ahead to 4:35 p.m. set time, which is item 11 for action. This is from Board Administration. This is a public hearing and a sale of a property parcel also known as 2025 Riverside Boulevard. The public hearing is now open for anyone who would like to speak for or against the sale of this property before we receive bids.
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I'll second the motion by Taylor. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We are now receiving bids for this property. If anyone would like to bid, please come forward, state your name and address, and your opening bid.
Daryl Preval, 8,000.
And you're representing yourself, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else who'd like to bid?
Is this an ongoing thing? You keep bidding?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Name and
Murtaugh.
$10,000.
10,000.
This is last bid, 8. Is that what it was, sir?
Yes. Is there anyone else who would like to bid or rebid on this property? Sir, come forward, please.
You guys will just both stay up there if you want.
10,200.
Thank you. Are there any other bids? 11,000? Any other bids? Going once? Going twice? Move to sell the property for 11,000 to Jeannie Murtaugh? Judy Murtaugh.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Congratulations, you bought yourself a piece of property. Heather is there to help you on your way out. We will now return to the consent agenda. Items 4 through 9 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is requested by a board member. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the August 1st meeting. Item 5 is approval of the claims. Item 6 from Board Administration is approval of notice of property sale resolution for a parcel also known as 703 Ross Street, setting that for Tuesday, August 22nd at 4:35 p.m. Item 7 is approval of resolution thanking and commending a county employee for years of service. That employee is Keith Hansen with Secondary Roads Department for 35 years. Item 8 from Human Resources includes item A, approval of a memorandum of personnel transactions. Item B, authorize the chairman to sign the authorization to initiate the hiring process. Item C, approval of request to deauthorize county position. Item D, approval of retiree request to remain on the dental insurance plan. That is the same Mr. Hansen. Item 9 from Building Services is to approve the public notice and designate a public hearing for the Woodbury County Sheriff's Training Center lease purchase agreement to be held on August 22nd at 4:45 p.m.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 10 is for information. It's a good news report. If I could call Dennis Butler up to explain the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting that the county has received yet again.
Okay, this certificate is for our CAFR report, our Certified Annual Financial Report that we do every year. We have to have it turned into the GFOA review board by December 31st of each year. That is the completion of our audit. And with that, we have received, this will be our 16th year we received it, and it's been a lot of help from the auditor's office and the treasurer's office and multiple other offices in a minor, lesser degree. So it's something the banks use here when we go to borrow money, they look at it, and it's a good financial tool for the financial individuals that do understand it. It is kind of complex, but our auditor has offered to come down and kind of go through with a new supervisor or any supervisor like go through it, but he usually presents that usually during January and February.
Very good.
Thank you.
We are now 4:39 by my watch. We will proceed with the 4:40 p.m. set time, which is item 12 for action by Secondary Roads, County Engineer Mark Nera. This is item A, is to receive and consider bids for propane for heating county buildings for fiscal year 2018.
Just for the folks in the audience, annually we take bids for the Treasurer's Office, Sheriff's Department, Emergency Services, and for Secondary Road and Conservation. We end up with one contract then for all propane purchases through fiscal year 2018.
The treasurer's office?
They have the little courthouse in Anthem,
Oh.
and that's on propane. I think last year we were 65 cents a gallon. This year, Central Valley Ag Co-op bids 96 cents per gallon. See if I've got any bid tabs. Should have been the first thing I did.
here.
Oh, sure. I didn't know you got a paper package, so. So again, Central Valley Ag Co-op, 96 cents per gallon. The next quote is from Rodney Propane, 92 cents per gallon. The quote from Johnson Propane, 79 cents per gallon. The final quote is from New Cooperative Incorporated for 85.5 cents per gallon. I recommend award to Johnson Propane for 79 cents a gallon.
I'll move that.
I'll second. A question?
Motion by Radig, second by Taylor. Yes, question.
How do you come up with 50,200? Do you use the last year's average or 4 or 5 year average or?
We kind of look at what our maximum use had been
Okay,
in the coldest winter we've had. I think last year we used less than 36,000 gallons, if I remember right.
so you're basically preparing for the worst case scenario, like a 13, 14 winter?
Right.
Okay, and then what do you do, let's say you have another really mild winter, which the last two have been, and it's like 36,000 again. Do you bank or do you sell back?
No, we don't actually purchase the 50,200 gallons. Is paid for on an as-filled basis.
Okay,
So we only pay for what we actually use.
Is there a threshold to get the prices you've been quoted?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
We don't bid with an over or under, so.
it's like the best of both worlds.
So far, nobody's complained about it from among the suppliers, so. Our goal is to always have our tanks full. That's one of the requirements we put on the people, is that they check ours once per week. They don't go dry. We had problems with one of our suppliers probably 4 or 5 years ago. I believe this is the first year they bid in the last couple of years, so. I would have taken the quotes back had they been low, because we would need to arrive at an understanding. When one of our sheds goes cold, it's a real problem when you've got a bunch of diesel equipment sitting inside of it. And if we have a snowstorm, if we don't go, nobody goes. So it's really critical to us.
Now, let's say you have like the polar vortex, and it's like, and you go above that, is there some sort of clause in there that you pay above? If you go to 50,500, or have we never?
So far, they haven't put that requirement on us.
Okay.
We're at that 79 cents for what we purchase.
That's it.
Very good. There's been a motion and a second to award to Johnson Propane for 79 cents a gallon. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 12B is our 4:45 p.m. set time, an action item to receive and consider bids for calcium chloride for fiscal year 2018.
I also have bid tabulations for the calcium chloride.
I've got mine.
calcium chloride distribution company. Bidding all over.
All right, first one is from Baumgars. $501.33, 501.33
Per unit, per
ton.
ton.
So the total bid then is $55,146.30, 55,146.30. This is one where we get a benefit if we've had a mild winter because we didn't use everything we purchased last year. So we were able to order, I think, two fewer semi-loads than we have in the past.
How many tons in a semi-load?
22.
Okay.
Scottwood Industries bids $359.60 per ton for a total bid of $39,556. Jericho Services bids $424. $424 for a total of $46,640. Perk Products, $118 per ton, total $45,980. I recommend award to Scottwood Industries.
I'll move that.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We'll now adjourn the Board of Supervisors meeting and convene the Wolf Creek Drainage District Trustee meeting. Item 13 for action is to accept the filing of engineer's report on Wolf Creek Drainage District annexation and schedule a public hearing for the district.
I'll turn this over to Brian Bloom from ISG Group. ISG is serving as your drainage engineer on this project.
Thank you and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Again, my name is Brian Bloom. I'm from ISG. We are an engineering consulting firm out of Storm Lake, Iowa. Wolf Creek Drainage District annexation report. This is why I'm here today to file. It was on May 4th, 2016. That public hearing for the district repairs that the Woodbury County Board, acting as trustees, found that adjacent lands which appear to benefit from the district facility were not currently on the assessment schedule. The board adopted a necessity of resolution to annex these grounds under Iowa Drainage Code 468.119. That Iowa Drainage Code, once again, is section 468.119. Each parcel under consideration was reviewed in the field, along with a review of past district plats and plans, topographical maps, USDA soil survey maps were also reviewed. This is all required by law. From this investigation, a new plat was developed. Iowa, again, is a civil law state which gives drainage rights to the upstream landowner. As long as the drainage happens in the natural course, that upstream landowner has the right to pass their water onto the properties of a lower elevation. Therefore, that is the major consideration taking place as to where the boundary has been established, along with past intent of the past engineers that have been working for the district. However, what you will notice by reviewing the plat is that we have not done any changing to this facility since its original establishment. The West Fork Drainage District, which lies to the west of Wolf Creek, had been straightened. So you see that we have some facilities, some of the lands within the assessment schedule are physically west of the West Fork and cannot receive any benefits from the Wolf Creek Drainage District because they are separated with the West Fork facility. So again, on your plat, you will notice that we've got a cross-hatched orange, which represents the zero benefit acres, and you also have a cross-hatch red, which is areas that do benefit from the facility and require annexation. Our investigation found that 246 acres drain into the district or they receive flood benefits. They're protected from floods by the facility of the Wolf Creek Drainage District. So they are being proposed for annexation on this report. And again, we have zero benefit acres where these acres do not benefit from the facility. They have enough surface relief to those lands that they do not require additional assistance or man-made drainage to those lands, and we're requesting and proposing that those lands be removed from the assessment schedule. These lands total 911.9 acres for a net reduction to the assessment schedule of 665.9 acres, a net reduction of 665.9 acres. So with this review of the annexation report, I open it up to any questions from the board.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have 3 questions for you. So the first one is, let's go to hashtag crosshatch red, which is...
Red.
Okay.
Annexation.
Right. So for these people, we're going to be telling them that they do benefit, but they have not been paying.
That is correct.
So there's like some good and bad news for them, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's say that they want to object to that. Can they?
They can object.
What's the remedy?
They have to somehow provide evidence that they do not drain to the Wolf Creek Drainage District.
So we're talking a drainage district attorney, so to speak?
There-
Someone in that field that could...
Yes, a drainage district attorney, another engineer that could provide evidence as to they do not need the facility in any way, shape, or form. They do not gain any protection from the levees that are out there, or they do not, their water.
You've done this isn't your first somebody successfully petition and say, hey, I'm not benefiting, you guys are...
I've had zero success at that objection, and I've had 0 objections.
Okay, so let's go to crosshatch orange.
Yes, sir.
Good and bad news. The good news is that you no longer are going to be assessed. Bad news is you have been paying for it.
Correct.
Okay, so any sort of, I can't imagine any objections to no longer paying. Is there anybody who says, well, wait a second, you've been assessing me for the last decade, and I clearly haven't been benefiting, and I'd like retroactive recoupment or applicability. Is that ever in your experience?
That's a very good question. That is covered underneath Iowa drainage law.
Okay.
So that we do not have to worry about paying back or reimbursement of any past tax that would have been assessed to these landowners. The code is very clear in the fact that it is a landowner's responsibility to make sure that these things are correct. So if they felt like they should not have been assessed, they should have brought it forward at the time in which they were originally put onto the assessment schedule.
Okay, and last question, and thank you. This is all very fascinating to me, just outside of my wheelhouse. Last one is, you said are we losing 665.9 acres of assessable acres?
On your assessment schedule, you will be a net loss of 665.
Do you know what that translates into as far as dollars?
As far as dollars are concerned, is the next step of this process is to go through a reclassification of the district. Basically a redistribution of these parcels and their assessment. What is their benefit? Drainage law basically has it that you have to pay in regards to your benefit of either drainage or flood. This one has both. So we will be looking at factors that will apply to both drainage and flood protection. I can't answer that question for you today because we have not moved forward with that portion of the project.
And the key here is the levy is whatever the board sets, which are the expenses accrued by the district, which we look at annually in May. So regardless of how the money is divided up among the acreages that are included, the amount that is charged against the district is the same. So there's no difference in total dollars. It's all a matter of what share each individual pays.
Great.
So in this case, fewer oars pulling at the load, so.
So they'll be paying more per acre.
Per acre, there will be a higher dollar amount. Correct.
Good explanation, thank you.
And good summary, Mr. Taylor, on pros and cons. It's been months in the making, hasn't it?
Yes.
For the benefit of the new members, the last town hall meeting we had in Hornick, I believe, this was discussed with a big map, and we came to a consensus that something needed to be updated. Obviously, those in the area would, if they're paying, they'd like more people to help pay. But we engaged a third party here and came up with something. So.
And it's that civil law portion that makes it, we can ask individuals from the higher elevations for any assessment. If they were to come in and object, there is no foundation for us to stand on in stating that they should be assessed. Mm-hmm. So today, what I'm asking of the board is to please consider the tentative approval of the annexation report and set a public hearing date for the landowners within the Wolf Creek Drainage District. Iowa Drainage Code requires that we hold a public hearing on this so that the public has a chance to object and basically comment on the annexation report. We have to do that 40 days beyond today's date as a minimum. You can go farther than that. That date would be September 17th, I believe.
September 19th is the day I recommended, which would be your board's meeting on the sheet that came out to you. Or you can schedule after that. It just can't be before.
Can't be before
that September 17th date. My recommendation, just for logistics, is that you hold it here as part of one of your regular board meetings, as opposed to going out as we did in the past. That might be appropriate at the point in time where we actually do the further discussion of the actual project of which this was a portion. As you all know, we have drainage problems down there. The board directed me to hire a contractor a couple of weeks, or about 2 months ago, to go out and do some minor repairs for outlet pipes in the lower reaches. We still have a pending project out there that has been identified as a needed improvement for this district. So first step was making sure everybody is assessed fairly. Second step is going to that project level. That would be something that you'd have an opportunity for discussion with those landowners when the annexation is taken care of. This would apply to any of their assessments for fiscal year 2019 and beyond. Anything else?
Nothing else to add.
Very well, then firstly, I'll make a motion to tentatively approve the engineer's report on annexation for the Wolf Creek Drainage District.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Discussion on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Secondly, I'll motion to direct the preparation of a notice of public hearing on the annexation report to be mailed to the affected landowners and published in the official newspaper 20 days prior to public hearing date.
Second.
Second by Raddick. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. And thirdly, I move to set a public hearing date on September 19th at 5 p.m. for review of the report. And this will be approval?
This will be approval, correct.
Review and approval of the report.
Second.
Second by Potabom. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.
We will now adjourn the Wolf Creek Drainage District Trustee meeting and continue the Board of Supervisors meeting with item 14. 14A is for action from the Rural Economic Development Department. This is approval of Woodbury County incentive for Home Base Iowa program.
Good evening, Supervisors. David Gleiser, Rural Economic Development Director. So this item is sort of a follow-up from a previous agenda item back in February where the board directed staff to begin the steps to submit application for the Home Base Iowa workforce recruitment program. As part of that program, there's a requirement for the jurisdiction making an application to come up with some local incentives. In reviewing the list of existing incentives that the City of Sioux City has put together, the staff that reviewed this, which were essentially staff from County Veteran Affairs and Sioux City Economic Development Department and myself, we are suggesting that the board allow us to give 2 $500 scholarships, which be applied towards the University of Iowa's Venture School program, to help any serviceman or woman or veteran who would be interested in starting a business take part of a 6-week intensive startup training curriculum. It's a little bit more intensive and hands-on than what one might receive at the Small Business Development Center at Western Iowa Tech. And I've had some discussions with the local professor of the Venture School. They seem somewhat interested in potentially using this as a pilot program for a veteran-specific program that could be created in the future. They would be willing to provide 1 scholarship, 1 seat in this program, and I would recommend that you allow me to carve out $1,000 out of my department's budget to help facilitate 2 $500 grant applications.
Is the incentive offer you suggested in particular required for our incentive offer to become Home Base Iowa program, or is it just an idea, an example of one?
It's just an idea of something that Woodbury County can do. You'll, in your backup materials, I submitted what we intend to submit for my next agenda item with the, it's kind of a laundry list of discounts and special offers that area businesses and organizations would offer as part of this program. And so in terms of what we as a local government, local organization could offer, it's a recommendation.
Any thoughts from the board or questions?
I'd move to authorize the Economic Development Director to budget $1,000 from the Community and Economic Development Department budget for 2 venture homeschool, not homeschool, venture school. Homeschool is different.
Yes.
Venture school, home base Iowa grants.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Potabom. Establishing Woodbury County Charter School, is that correct?
No.
No, that is incorrect.
Saw how you snuck that in, though.
What's that?
Come on, go ahead.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B is to approve submission of Home Base Iowa application.
So since February, county staff have been working towards completing the steps required to submit our application. We've really basically firmed this up back in June, but I did want to give the Veteran Affairs Board of Directors time to process what our application is offering and allow them to provide some feedback on a potential kickoff event. Since June, we've come to learn that the City of Sergeant Bluff also is seeking the Home Base Iowa designation as a community themselves. So the Home Base Iowa director attended the Sergeant Bluff City Council meeting at their last regularly scheduled meeting. They did not pass a resolution to begin the process, but they will, and we are suggesting that we submit our application and time our kickoff events together, so that way the governor's office and state level staff don't have to make two separate trips. And more than likely it'll probably be an event this fall at Sergeant Bluff and be a big community event. We're proposing that our kickoff event be something family oriented, so maybe like a barbecue and kid games, family games. We'll have elected officials present and state officials as well.
Mr. Chair, are there other communities that you know within Woodbury County? I mean, I know we have Sioux City and then potentially Sergeant Bluff, or is there a threshold where you become so small that you're not able to offer?
No.
things?
Well, there is a requirement that you have 10% of your local businesses sign up to commit to hiring a veteran. And as part of that, you know, this program is a workforce recruitment initiative, and so we got to have some place for these folks to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Other thoughts or questions? Obviously, this is a good thing to do. We knew that back in February when we spoke on the resolution itself. I'll move to send the application.
Second.
Second by Radig. Is there discussion?
Dick.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, and I'll be sure to keep my board liaison and the chair apprised as to when we actually pull the trigger and submit the application, and let you folks know when we hear it back from the state.
Thank you. Very good. Item 15 is an information item from the Board of Supervisors, Jeremy Taylor, regards county policies regarding county buildings. As a reminder, please remember to be recognized by the chair before speaking. With that, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I wanted to address this item mainly in response to the recent Chief Judge's order that came out. And I wanted to mention, I know that there's been some discussion back and forth on a wide range, but wanted to preface all of this with, there's an article that came out in the Des Moines Register. I was hoping to get in the backup, but that's there. Understanding that 44 counties had courthouse weapon bans prior and 72 had courtroom bans. And I get that we're in this midst of another county attorney saying he understands legislative intent was to have people allowed to carry in courthouses, and there's a disagreement from probably a majority of sheriffs. That's not the issue I really want to get into tonight. What I want to get into specifically concerns portions of this order that I think go far above and beyond what I had anticipated a Chief Judge's order would be. It was 10 pages, and so it was quite wide-ranging, and I'd like to have some clarification from this board and or the Security Committee. This is only an informational item for tonight, but I wanted to bring up 2 points that I found either questionable or something that I believe is still within the County Board of Supervisors to enact policies. That's normally the way these things work. So one of the provisions in this order discusses law enforcement officers, and I wanted to discuss potentially bringing forward language that would say all law enforcement officers and members of the United States military are welcomed into the Woodbury County Courthouse in uniform, whether on duty or off duty, in order to conduct personal business. I was talking to my brother-in-law, who's a police officer in Texas, and he thought it was interesting. He'd never heard of such a thing, of people in uniform being disbarred from a county courthouse to conduct personal business. If you're off at 3 o'clock p.m. and you're told that you're discouraged from wearing your uniform to come in and vote or pick up a marriage license, to me that sends the wrong message. And he was surprised that such an order would be issued. And then the other one is something that I think the order will probably encourage our law enforcement to disregard, but I still think it's within our purview to set policy. And that's as trusted and respected members entrusted with law enforcement officers shall not be disarmed, whether on or off duty, except when conducting, of course, judicial branch business such as jury duty or if entering courtrooms in an off-duty status, which I can get. So those are some things that I thought went in a direction that was surprising. And then what I'd like to also ask, I listed some questions here, and I won't read them verbatim, but I'm curious how the Chief Judge would suggest some of these things, and that's this being communicated to the public outside of reading a 10-page court order posted somewhere. I'm curious what the consequences will be if a law enforcement officer's found to be in the courthouse with a firearm on off-duty time. That happened a couple of weeks ago, and so I want to know what the consequences would be for law enforcement officers. I also like clarification if judges are barred from off-body carry or on-body carry. I'm curious if that court order will be applicable there. The decision to exempt parts of Trosper Hoyt. And then how does this make us safer? I don't quite get it. To have people that we're trusting to protect us during certain hours of the day, and we're saying we're not trusting them with a firearm in parts of our county courthouse during other parts of the day. I don't know how that makes us safer. But that's something I'd like to have discussed. And I think the right venue for it, and I think this would be agreed as the Safety and Security Committee meeting. I understand that you won't be there, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask if there'd be consent for Supervisor DeWitt. I know he's got some background. I understand there's more than one person that has background, but that's those are kind of my opening remarks on the whole thing.
Well, I've spoken to Mr. DeWitt. He's willing to attend in my stead when I'm at the ISAC annual conference. I don't see a problem with that. Is there consensus of the board, first of all, for that?
Sure.
And then we can move ahead to some of the other questions. You laid a lot at our feet. Supervisor Taylor, is there a process you'd like to go through, or are you simply asking for reactions?
I'm just sort of floating those things out there as things that I think need to be answered. Some of them will be from maybe the Chief Judge, and I guess I just wanted to make some comments of things as far as an initial reaction. So, I mean, anybody's welcome to respond to that or not to, or to say anything.
Are there thoughts from the board members first?
Isn't the judge one of the members of the safety committee?
Yes.
I would say take it to the safety committee and see what comes out of there.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge being, of course, the board has directed a particular direction to come out of the security committee, and that will not happen. Should not have any illusions there, but there is, of course, no harm in meeting.
It's a good place to have a dialogue, I think.
Any other comments from board members?
Oh, alluding to Mr. Taylor's comments, I'm just kind of curious as to
I don't understand how gun safety changes when you punch out of the time clock or change your uniform. I guess I was 24/7 gun safety, gun responsibility, so I'm a little, I mean, I understand his reasoning, Judge Hoffmeyer's reasoning, but I guess it kind of confuses me too. So I don't see a problem with being armed in civilian clothes, off duty.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Supervisor DeWitt, but you carry that role otherwise when you're not here.
I do.
And so, to me, we go through Save Yourself training, but for us to think that it's a requirement for these gentlemen to be out of uniform or to not be armed, if you want to call the duty status, or for you, I don't think makes us safer, but that's just, I think that's apparent to the public, but that's my thought.
And certainly, Supervisor DeWitt, you represent a cross-section that was not affected by the supervisory order and would now be affected by the administrative order. According to the Supreme Court, the local governments have the authority to set policies for their own employees, which of course this board did. And we were told that the sheriff's office would respect that because the Supreme Court order did give and note that right being held by the county. Dave, if you have something to say, please come up. Excuse me, I just didn't want whispering in the audience. And then, of course, we have the supervisory order, or excuse me, the administrative order that comes out and says, actually, if you're an employee of the sheriff's office, if you are a law enforcement officer, this extra piece applies to you. I agree wholeheartedly with Supervisor Taylor that this was unexpected. I think a Supreme Court order that engages a security committee and asks the district chief judge to implement something that follows it is to be expected. But when the Supreme Court order itself says counties reserve the right to determine practices for their own employees, and the administrative order comes out and says, actually, you don't, when it's a law enforcement officer, I think it's insulting for law enforcement to disarm Supervisor DeWitt if he so chooses to exercise that right, not only as a person, but as a law enforcement officer. I think that off-duty law enforcement has saved lives, has contributed to the public good, is not something that we should fear. And to reiterate Supervisor Taylor's comments sends the wrong message, both locally and through the court system. Major Wingert.
Still the board's turn to talk. I mean, you guys were, I'll talk soon as you guys are done.
Is there another member that, or we can, go ahead, please.
I think we're splitting hairs. It's been proven in court numerous times. We're never off duty. I see something, I react, I'm carrying a firearm, I'm immediately on duty. You guys know this because if I get injured, you're going to pay for me when I act, if I'm walking in the mall, if I'm doing whatever. I'm hesitant to speak for the judge, but the way I understand that order is if I'm going through a divorce, if I'm being sued, and I'm coming in here I have a 2 o'clock court hearing, you're not going to be allowed to carry your firearm into the courtroom. And we've done that before in the past with law enforcement officers. They're here on totally different business. You're not going to carry your firearm because they become heated on there. But if right now, I'm a salary employee, but I'm always working, but I'm working. I don't care if I'm wearing flip-flop shorts and I have my gun stuck in my pocket. I'm still working. So one of your questions was, how is the public going to know about this court order? It's not the public's, we don't publish court orders. That's for us to give to our employees and to tell them how to act on this court. We get 20 court orders a day. saying move this individual from over here to the courthouse or do what. We don't publish court orders. It's an order from the court to us how to do our job. So I'm not worried about letting the public know about that. It's just, this is what the judge wants us to do. Now, with some clarification, be nice on that part, yes, but me personally reading it, I don't see it go as far as what you guys are worried about on there about him being insulted. I'm not insulted. I can't go to the federal building. I can't go to the federal building in full uniform. I have to put my gun in a gun box and then go do my business. It's just, that's what the judge's ordered. That's what we do. I mean, and we don't get to pick and choose court orders. If that's what they wish us to do, that's how we comply.
In response to that, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think we're on the same sheet of music. But that's really not what the court order says. I mean, it says even with valid identification, officers entering the courthouse for jury duty, which I'm with you, or personal business, pick up a marriage certificate, go to the historic committee, which we had a Sioux City PD come the other day, shall be required to secure firearms in a weapons locker. That's what it says, and if that's going to be consistent, then law enforcement does need to be disarmed according to the court order. So that's where I'm looking for maybe the same clarification. And if from that Safety and Security Committee meeting, Judge Hoffmeyer says, no, what I meant was if they've got a pending case, if they've got a divorce hearing, I'm cool with that. I'm not trying to split hairs, but I think the plain reading of this is here's what I don't want to have happen. You have somebody come in, let's say, could be one of the sheriff's personnel, not on official duty status, not salaried, comes in to get a marriage license, and nobody disarms him or her. Is that person not in contempt of court? According to this court order, the plain reading, anybody's plain reading of it would be absolutely. I mean, it's spelled out there. And so I just want to avoid that situation. And if the good judge wants to say, I meant when there's a pending case, or I meant, that's fine. But right now, I don't see how Sioux City PD is not disarmed, or there's not, prove to me that you're on duty status or off duty status. I just don't think it's tenable. And I want to be consistent if the impetus is somebody like a Supervisor DeWitt. I think people need to know, and I think it will avoid a lot of headaches, none of which we want.
Clarification would be nice, and if he says no, then we're going to direct our court security staff, unless you're working or doing something valid for work, then you don't bring your which, as long as the place is secure, these guys are secure, fine, here's my gun, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to go do what I got to do, and I've lived it for 24 years with the federal building. It's just part of doing business.
It was one of the reasons I said let's get it clarified at the safety committee, because I read it the way they did when it says jury duty or personal business. I read it to say if that officer is part of a divorce hearing or child custody hearing or having to go in and pay child support that he was fighting, those are the times off duty I don't want him to have their gun. And when I ran the security effort, we did disarm one Sioux City officer. He said he was coming in for his own argument with his ex-wife about child support, and I said, you're not going to go in here armed. And he had no problem with it. And that's the way I read the order. So that's why I said, let's let the judge at the safety committee let us know what he meant.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, it's not intended to make it's just if we added that, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Because by the same token, you have your example of the Sioux City Police coming in for a committee meeting. By a reading, it's personal business. I don't see how it would be official law enforcement duty to participate in graphic design ideas of a committee. I don't think it's right for a judge to discourage them from, wearing their uniform, or I suppose encourage them to change before coming into a committee meeting. So again, I sympathize with the enforcement of court orders, but our challenge is the longer these court orders get, there's still assumptions we operate under, and we all agree that there needs to be some more clarity to this, and suppose the judge will show up at the security committee meeting to give that clarity, because we need it. Because again, by a plain reading, I agree, it's what is personal business. We don't pick and choose court orders, but we can certainly pick and choose what we decide personal business is, which is the issue.
Well, that's all I have. If we'll give a report back when we find out more, unless you.
All right, no, I'm good with that, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? We'll move on to item 16, the chairman's report. I have discussion of the date and costs of the Employee Appreciation Luncheon on here. Suggested date of September 19th is due to the fact that the construction on the north side of the building, I'm told, is forecast to be completed around the beginning of September. So I think for the safety and convenience of staff going into the alleyway for that meal, I think we should consider that. We had it roughly the same time last year. For the benefit of the new members, there's a backup sheet in the backup, a memo from our administrative assistant, Karen James, discussing the cost that the supervisors incurred personally last year. The way this has worked is, I believe it was started by Supervisor Batchelor in the past to honor employees, and the supervisors would pitch in a fifth of the cost and rely on donated items, which you can see listed, some ideas of who our staff will reach out to. So what I wanted to do is get some consensus on this, get your ideas, get approval of that date. I know it works for a couple of you that I talked to, but obviously we want to have a full board serving, interacting with employees for that lunch break if possible. Last year it was set for 11:30 to 1. 11:30 to 1 on September 19th would be a Tuesday, convenient for board members attending the meeting. So I'll open up for thoughts.
It's a good thing. Keep it going.
It's a good thing. Keep it going.
What's on the menu this year?
Well,
Huh?
We have done hot dogs, chili dogs. Instead of baked beans, I suggested cream corn. What else did we talk about, Karen? Chips.
Cream corn?
Yeah. We have corn here. Baked
Well,
beans.
I know it's Iowa,
Every
but I'm just
year
not,
it's
I
baked beans.
don't, it's just me.
No?
I'm not quite on with,
He just
Okay.
doesn't want you to be in an office with him after eating.
working the whole atrium. I don't worry about the cream corn, really?
I'm open to suggestions.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
We put it in one of those igloos and you just hold your cup. It's pretty cool.
We have 2 check marks on cream corn here. Potabom and I, 1 check for baked beans.
I'm good with pizza.
Baked beans.
Speaking about splitting hairs. Well, we'll work something out. It's a good thing the board does and good time to people to take them.
Coleslaw's fine.
Maybe we should direct Ed to do a countywide survey of baked beans versus cream corn.
Let's
All right,
keep
what
the
else do you have in the
authority
chairman's
here.
report?
Let's keep the authority here.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely day-to-day operations, although I'll entertain any legal advice from our board attorney. Thoughts there. Okay. Hearing none. That's the date. Item 17 is report on committee meetings.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I had a meeting with John Malloy, 2 of his people from WCICC, and Matt Anderson from the Sioux City Museum, looking at the Centennial and some apps that are out there in order to provide tours for the county courthouse, but not have a physical person doing so, because we talked about 100 days of tours. Well, that's kind of a daunting task. So it'd be really cool if people could come in, hear the audio, have it either on their smartphone or device, or be issued something. We talked about 12 different stations, and Canadian Bob, one of John's guys, is looking into some costs as well as some different things that we can do, and working with Lynn Blades and Jim Jung and others for content. So I think it's going to be a great thing. Hopefully it's something that can be used not only during that time, but into perpetuity once we have that. So we'll come back with a recommendation for the Historic Committee. So that's exciting stuff. The other two that I had we had the region envisioning session. I was able to be there for the first half. Supervisor
I had to go at 1 o'clock as well.
Radig was able to be there for the first half as well. And it was, I thought, good communication. Deb Burnite did a great job facilitating and learned some good goals of the region, and also kind of the lead thing was the crisis and assessment center there on Division, and how well that's doing, acting as a mid-level step before the ER or behavioral health at a hospital, where someone can go and even perhaps intoxicated or on some sort of substance, if they are actively battling with some issues and need that stabilization. That's been a very good thing, and learn some of the challenges and opportunities. So that was good. And then finally, speaking of the region, I'll be asking the region to look at the level of funding for the Sanford Center from the mental health levy, which has been a little over $2 million since 2008, and we'll be asking for them to look at that and see if that is in any way a good use of the mental health levy. So that's my deal. Anything you wanted to add, Supervisor Radig, as far as the day?
Ditto.
Okay.
Anything you'd like to add on any other committee?
That was the only one.
Okay. Other supervisors? Are there any citizen concerns? Are there any board concerns? We are adjourned.
It is nice to see you back in town, Sheriff.
I did want to bring up that maybe the county engineer is trying to do
How was the trip?
Is on your microphone.
It looked like it.